is Dave, it is Duncan, it is Kyle, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan, Kyle and I have been checking out the new album from UK progressive doom band Famyne. The band's new album, To the Ground Below, will be released on May 13th via Svart Records. Hailing from the heart of the Garden of England, Canterbury, fathers Famyne slug and soar their way up and out from the underground, shaking off any shackles of genre constraints on their new album, The Ground Below. Since their inception in 2014, Famyne have been rapidly building a reputation for themselves and an epic universe all of their own, magnetising more souls into the orbit of their unique expansion of masterful doom metal. From their Famyne EP in 2015, earning a place at Bloodstock Open Air in 2016, to their breakout self-titled debut in 2018, Famyne have been constantly turning heads as a promised new light in the darkness. The new album was recorded and mixed by Ian Sadler, also worked on the first album, and then produced by Ian Sadler and Famyne. Drums were recorded at Rimshaw Audio by Mike Thorne, and then the album was mastered by Jamie Gomez Arellano at Orgon Studios. Okay, so, gentlemen, it's another Svart Records release.
Ooh. I'm slowly, very quickly becoming a massive fan of Svart Records.
Slowly, very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
What speed is he moving at? We can't quite tell. It's a tricky one, that, Kyle.
Yep.
You're just finding out about them now. Me and Dave have been on that train since 2012.
2012,
yeah.
Oh, good old Svart. And in true Svart Records fashion, this band sound perfectly suited to the label.
Yeah.
Once again, I don't know how they do it, but every band on that label just has a quality about them that screams Svart Records.
It is like you got to stress it. None of the bands necessarily sound alike, but weirdly
genres.
they all fit. Like it's like a jigsaw puzzle where all the pieces don't actually make up the picture, but they all fit. It's bizarre. It's bizarre how they do it because their roster is chock-a-block with eclectic sounding stuff from like the weirdest like Finnish folk indie punk all the way through to this.
Yep.
Black
metal. This looks a black metal album last week.
And Dave was telling us about the black metal album last week.
I am right.
The Black Album. That's right. Metallica's Black Album. Now available on Svart Records. Because I don't want to be sued by Lars Ulrich. That was a joke. You know what he's like? He'll come for you. He'll come for you hard.
He will. So, Duncan, I know that, we are both fans of the Svart Records. But are Famyne, are they a new band that you will be adding to your list of great Svart artists? What did you think of album number 2 from Famyne?
Famyne are a band that causes me a great degree of conflict, Dave.
Oh, I like it. Let's get into this then.
A great
drama.
I think the moments, the kind of high watermark moments of this album are stunning, like absolutely stunning. I think this album is too long.
Oh, right, okay.
That is my biggest issue with it. But then again, if you are someone that enjoys cake and ice cream, then putting cake and ice cream in the same bowl is surely a great thing. You would like to think. I found myself, particularly on the third listen, not so much the first listen. The first listen was like a pure joy, but by the third listen, I was getting to the point where I felt that certain songs, specifically in the middle of this album, has 2 very long songs back to back. When I say very long songs, easily 2 minutes longer than anything else on the album.
Yeah.
Kind of back to back. And they are tracks which are, by their nature, slower and more kind of, not ambient, but kind of more deliberate than the rest of the album. And my overall feeling on that is that it kind of grinds the album to a bit of a halt before kind of picking things back up and racing to the end. That's the biggest conflict I have here. Out with that, this guy's vocals are the selling point for this band. Like, and that's not to take away anything from what they're doing in the background. It's it sits somewhere kind of between like a Baroness and a kind of like little like shades of Tool, with at the same time a big old swag of Boss Keloid in there as well, in terms of how the bass and the guitar sound tight together and the kind of playful nature. But it has a more deliberate aim at doom than any of the aforementioned bands. It's like a real exercise in labouring the point in the best possible way. So riffs become like enjoyably monotonous, as fucking like oxymoronic as that is. Like the fact that they repeat as much as they do or go as long as they do somehow makes them better in my ears. Like, because there are certain moments where they are just playing the same riff for like 2 minutes. And interestingly enough, the dynamic that is making you enjoy it is the vocals, because the vocals aren't staying static. The vocals, if anything, because his range is so, he will be in that mid range and then just fucking fly up like with ease, and unexpectedly as well. Not always where I would necessarily place it from a compositional point of view. I think lyrically, he's like a real kind of artist with his words. His lyrics are kind of like beautiful, like almost landscapes, the way he kind of lays them out. And then in the background, you just have an incredible production. Like, the production on this one is exactly how you want this to sound. It's grounded, it's earthy, it's spacey at parts, but when they do bring it all in together, you are getting punched in the face in the best possible way. Interestingly enough, after that kind of the kind of two middle song section, the back three are probably where the band get maybe their most ambitious and their most aggressive. Specifically in things like there's some solos. The second last track has like a wicked fucking, like, just out of nowhere, really, really, really kind of jaggy solo, which I thought worked incredibly well. And it kind of almost made me feel like, why is there not more of that on the album? But then it stands out because there's not more of that on the album. So I'm kind of wanting more, but the likelihood is, if that's what they did, I would be complaining that the album was too formulaic. So this is the conflict I have when listening to this, is that there are elements that I think are truly excellent, like just jaw-droppingly excellent, and vocally you could not fault this. This guy's vocals are, the tits. Some of the riffs are just like absolutely doomtastic in the best possible way.
Doomtastic, I like
Doomtastic. But for whatever reason, on a little bit on the second listen, but primarily on the third listen, I don't even think it's the first 7-minute track. I think it's the second one, whose name is Babylon. Which I first thought, obviously, I was like, they're doing a Skindred cover. They're not doing a Skindred cover. No, I'm only sure. How we laugh. Have a laugh. Laugh at me. Come on. Thanks. So, like, Babylon, it became a bit monotonous for me. On the second listen. By the third listen, it was very monotonous, and the Submarine track before, which is called A Submarine, kind of the same, in that it stays very much within like a one lane. It does move. It does have movements, but it doesn't really start off like super quiet, and by the end you're getting ferocity, or vice versa. It kind of starts and ends very much in the same sort of place. Which, to me, with a longer track, with a band that clearly display that they have the ability to add huge swaths of dynamics, that kind of elastic nature isn't prevalent on those songs. So for whatever reason, that just feels like a bit of an anchor for me. That being said, as British doom bands go, who weren't on my radar at all, and ironically enough, calling your name, Famyne, there's plenty to feast on here. There you go. That's your quote. From Metal Epidemic. Plenty feast on.
I like it.
It's like an all-you-can-eat world's buffet. I don't know where I'm going. I'm waffling now. Yeah,
Excellent.
I kind of. My score will reflect the tongue-tied nature that I'm in just now. Like I say, there are moments on this one that are just chef's kiss, but there are other moments where I feel like they meander just a little bit too much. And by tightening it up, I mean, Doom's a genre to do that in. If you want to labour the point and meander and just like feel the room, Doom is your genre. It's designed that way. But their particular brand, specifically with the melody, there were sections where I was like, we could probably move on now. Like I'm quite comfortable we can move on. It's a great. I mean, they're definitely on my radar. I'd love to see them live. I think they've got not a unique sound, but a very refreshing sound. And once again, it comes down to the vocals. The vocalist is doing stuff in a cadence and register that you don't always hear in this genre, and he does it really fucking well. Conflict is the word of today. So says Sesame Street, so we'll all be using it at the end. Conflict, and the number 3.
The three-er.
Yeah, a 3-er. So yeah, that's my confusing thoughts.
Okay. Kyle, more or less conflicted?
Less conflicted. I was a bit more. I mean, I agree with some of the stuff you said, like the middle section being. I was listening to it in the background for my third or fourth listen, and I was like, this is getting on a bit. First listen, not so much. I didn't, but the third or fourth, it was like, okay, mate, this one could probably move on a little bit now. But only in that middle section, I didn't really feel that at any other point. And like Duncan said, the standout moments are fucking fantastic. It begins well and it ends extremely well, and there's a great range of dynamics throughout the whole album that I really like. The beginning of track 3, Gone, starts off super quiet, and you've had 2 quite doomy tracks before that, and it's just to be able to show that off on track 3 is a bold choice for one, and is a very, very well-placed choice as well, I feel, because then they get more into it halfway through that track, and then out with that they go further.
You also
into it.
see when you listen to like when I was listening to the first track, I felt, even like if you take the vocals aside, I kind of felt like I knew what I was getting. Like I've heard bands like this before, and then the vocals come in, I'm like, well, that's a bit different. Then the second track comes along, and it's kind of in the same vein, and I was like, right, so it's an album of that, and then track 3 comes, and you're like, oh, right, they have a different gear. Right, that's cool. That's far more interesting. With you, I think that placement's really smart.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I mean, usually track 3 is the one you blow the audience away with, but this time they're like, no, we're going to take it down, and we're going to show you a different side of us. And it's worked really well, and it hooked me in, even more than the first couple of tracks had. And you mentioned the production, it's just perfect. This is exactly what Doom should sound like. Clean, clear, earthy, rub some dirt on it, but great. I gotta say, the lead work, starting with track 2, you sort of get like a jaggy, weird, leady sound. It's like somebody scraping the strings and stuff. But towards the end of the album, there's a lot like almost blazing fast solos. And I was like, you don't get that in Doom. What the hell? But it works so well. I really liked it. It was such a... I mean, we've heard bands quite like this before, but I still think they've managed to carve out like sort of a uniqueness in themselves. They definitely got influences, and they definitely have a style they want to stick to, but they're very themselves, and you can hear that in the way they play. And I do want to say the vocalist, a little bit of Serj Tankian in him. Some of the cadences and some of those lines are very Serj Tankian, and I was like, yep, got my vote.
At range, like you don't expect it in Doom.
No,
like,
not at all.
Like Doom vocalists tend usually not to go. They tend not to go like high. They tend to have about one range. Yeah. And that fits the style they're doing. But this guy, like, really, and his melodies are really smart, like really clever. Because,
that's what I mean about the Serj Tankian thing, because his melodies are nuts, and this guy's is very much in that. He definitely utilizes his entire range throughout. They haven't said no, none of that. They no, go for it, do everything you possibly can, and they stand out. And it's for the better of the album. It's fantastic to listen to. It's super easy to listen to as well, except for that middle section. But still, it's like, it's great.
Cool.
I really liked it. If you couldn't tell,
I mentioned this album to Kyle a few weeks ago. When we were looking at stuff that was coming up for review, and I'd stuck it on the list because I'd heard one song, I'd heard one of the singles, and I think the single was the last song on the album, For My Sins, and I heard it and I was so undecided about it. Like I thought, this is cool, but there's something that I couldn't quite make my mind up about, and it was vocally, especially vocally. The vocals have a very kind of doomy vibe, but they were almost on that track. They were almost a little bit theatrical, very distinctive sounding, and still like interesting enough that I wanted to hear more. But I was still kind of on the fence about it. I didn't know which way it was going to go. But I'm glad that I did investigate this further, because I found this album was really rewarding from the get-go. And the first track, Defeated, I felt it's quite a kind of hypnotic sound they have. Like it's doomy and it's got an occult kind of vibe, but it's quite grand and quite majestic at times as well. And I didn't get that kind of theatrical vibe from the opener. The guitars have this like very commanding type heaviness to them, but without being too overpowering. It's doomy, but it's got a slight kind of gothic tone, which gives the tracks a bit of mystery to it. And it's weird, like when I heard that first single, I wasn't sure, but then when the vocals kicked in on track 1, I was like, yep. I really like this. Like the vocals are really fascinating. And like you said, his style is so fluid. Like his melodies go all over, like just almost kind of like bend round the riffs.
Even when you get a point where, like, especially this is maybe the key to the 7-minute tracks, like he will sing his melody, right, to his chorus section or whatever it is, and then he almost shoots up, and then you're like, right, so his vocals have went up, so he shot up an octave or whatever, so he's gonna sing the same lines, and then he somehow finds like an even more interesting way of delivering the same thing, and it's so baffling. It's kind of the way I kind of thought about it is he's kind of almost doing the job of a lead guitarist.
That's one of my points I was going to make, actually.
All right, sorry.
It's all right.
Shit. I'll get my coat.
Just stolen.
All right. But he doesn't. Even though, like, I was going to say it's basically it sounds like another instrument in the band, but it doesn't sound like it's been overdone either. I think these tracks could have easily become very overloaded had the vocals been too much, but I think he shows just enough restraint throughout the album while still keeping it very unique. Musically, it's still steeped in an old school. Like that second track comes out of the gate and it's absolutely soaked in Black Sabbath and Saint Vitus, like very traditional sounding in terms of the kind of doomy style. And as you said, the riffs don't constantly change. They keep it very simple structurally, quite traditional for the most part. But you know, it's conventional and that works for a reason. It definitely sticks in your head. And even though the riffs do have a bit of a fondness towards like the veterans of the genre, it doesn't feel like they're ripping them off or rehashing like old ideas from the past. There are also times where they go like you said, completely clean, more restrained. You hear it on like a submarine where they are like constantly building, adding layers until they unleash that more like powerful side. And then they're playing with different textures and tones, like Gone, you know, it's got a really cool arc to it as well, starting off mellow, then gradually building up and then bringing it back down. I really liked track 7, the AI, I don't know. The AI, hey. There's a heavier riff towards the end that's got a very, almost a kind of southern kind of bite to it. And then they add in like double bass drums, which I was like, what's going on here? Like, and it really kind of heightens the groove there. And it's not something like double bass drums, not something usually associated with like traditional doom, but you know, because it's generally quite slow, but it really works. And they use it a little bit on the submarine as well, and it's really cool. By the time I got to the last track, which was For My Sins, and that was the first track that I'd actually heard, I actually liked the track. It was weird in the context of hearing the rest of the album. It was. I
love when that happens, though. I love when you get a distinct idea that you're not sure, or you don't really like the sound of something, and when you hear it in the album, you're like, oh, this totally makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the only kind of negatives for me, I think on occasion, it's kind of what you guys have touched on a little bit already. I think sometimes the hook gets a little lost. Like tracks like Babylon, for example, had some cool ideas, but I felt like it was just missing the mark slightly. Some of the riffs felt a little bit repetitive, you know, by the time you reach the end. But as a genre, doom can feel like that a lot of the time as well. But these guys I think they're a very interesting addition to the UK doom scene. I think they've got that key element in the vocals that will help them stand out from the rest of the pack in this particular style. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this way more than I thought I was going to. After listening to that first single, I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to like it, but yeah, turns out I did. Ratings, what we're thinking for this album from Famyne. Duncan, what you scoring this one?
So this is interesting because I was coming in at a 3.5 and I've enjoyed the conversation. So I'm leaning towards a 4. I'm going to stay with the 4. Like I say, it's a... Also kind of think, I listened to this 3 times over 2 days and I don't know if this is an album that you should be doing that. I get the feeling that if I spaced this up and listened to it like once a week or once every other week, my not even issues, my feelings towards that middle bit maybe wouldn't be as prevalent. Yeah. So because you're listening to it in such a confined space for review purposes, I think that maybe didn't aid it. But yeah, I'm with you. I genuinely think they're one of those bands that there's a shitload of doom bands out there that you could play like a minute of, and I would not be able to pick them out in a line out, like, you know, at all. This one you could straight away. As soon as those vocals hit in, you know exactly who you're listening to.
Yeah.
And that in itself is something worthy of merit for the best reasons. So yeah, I'm going to come in 4.
Nice. Kyle?
Exactly the same, 4, yeah. That was pretty much my feeling from the get-go, and it didn't sway either way. It was like, it's a great album. It's really fun to listen to. I think you're right. If you put it on like once a week, once every 2 weeks, your appreciation for it will grow. It's a grower, definitely, but I love it. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, 4 out of 5.
Nice. Yeah, I'd agree with you guys. Yeah, I had 4 on mind as well. After the first listen, I was like, yeah, this feels like a 4 out of 5. And even after 2, 3, 4 more listens, I was still sitting at that 4 out of 5. So
this review has been brought to you by the word conflict and the number 3. Like I told you, 3. 3 was agreed.
Yeah, so Famyne and their new album, To the Ground Below, will be released on May 13th on Svart Records. Give it a listen. Links below to their Facebook, to the Bandcamp, so you can check out some tracks. Let us know what you think. Stick some comments in. Happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. That is the review. Thanks for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.